Welcome to episode 7 of the Snobcast. Today we are talking about Beyond the Black Rainbow. As always, this conversation will contain spoilers. We'll be talking about this movie from beginning to end.
Hello. My name is Dr. Mercurio Arboria, and I am the founder of the Arboria Institute. Through our unique blend of benign pharmacology, sensory therapy, and energy sculpting, we can guide you to a new, better, happier you.
All right, welcome. My name's Jeff Bateman. I'm here with my fellow snobs, David.
Hello.
Joseph.
Hello.
And Steve.
Hello.
We're
so indistinguishable from each other.
I think it's just one guy in a room.
All right, so we'll make it look like it's multiple guys, right?
So we watched Beyond the Black Rainbow, which is on Netflix, instant. Why do we watch this movie?
Yeah, why, Joseph?
Why do we watch it, Joseph?
Yeah, Joseph recommended it.
Something to do.
No, it was interesting.
Well, you saw this movie, and your film snob light started going off. You started beep, 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 beep. This movie triggered obviously some sort of reaction from your mind that made you think, oh, you know, other film snobs want to watch this.
Yeah, there's basically a checklist that's on there.
Yeah, there is.
And which we can discuss right now, actually. What would be some of those?
Look, I got my impressions where I got Kubrick.
Okay.
Also a little bit of Eraserhead in there too. Mostly Kubrick though, with just those flat angle shots. Very, very, I guess what you call minimalist color tones going on, you know, so that's what it felt like. And plus, like, you know, that kind of synthesizer music going on in the background, even though it's almost not even music, it's kind of like just, it's partly background music, or it's partly the ambience of the lab.
Yeah, I'm not really sure where the sound design ends and the music or score begins. You're not really sure what's ambient or what isn't.
Yeah.
Well, there's some pretty obvious score in this movie. There's a lot of that, like, what would you call that kind of music?
Well, I thought it was kind of Vangelis inspired. That's what kind of went off in my head, especially in terms of how it was edited and everything, was kind of Blade Runner-esque. It was very kind of dreamlike, and the scenes kind of bled into one another. And
yeah, I mean, there's even a kill scene that's right out of Blade Runner.
yeah.
I mean, the opening, just with the red titles, was kind of like Blade Runner. I like that a lot, with the 1983.
Yeah, I'm getting the
slowly.
same kind of feeling I got from Drive, which is this is kind of like a throwback to that 80s style kind of feel to it, but at the same time this is doing something a little new and different with something we're already familiar with.
Yeah, because it's a combination of kind of a bunch of different styles. Excuse me. Like, for example, I feel like it mixes a lot of European art film.
Yeah.
Too.
Was this made by Americans? It
Yeah,
stars
it's Canadians, or it's Canadian.
It was a Canadian production, or it was made by Canadians?
No, I think it's a Canadian production. I think the director, Panos Cosmatos, pretty sure he's American, I think.
Oh.
I mean, there's no reason why an American can't make a movie like this. You just see so few of them taking these kinds of risks, and this movie has such balls, like, to have the pacing so deliberately slow, you know, the way it is. You have to be ready for that kind of movie. I mean, I liked it just as a film snob who likes taking these kind of different, these very just sort of this other realm of cinema, but at the same time, it's not going to be mass marketable. But
no, that's the thing. Like, it's hard to say that it's personal because it's not necessarily that there's any themes in there that you can kind of draw out that would make it personal. But it's personal in terms of, like, this is somebody's vision. This is like what this person likes.
Yeah.
yeah.
You definitely could envision this director really thinking about it, and like a lot of the visual cues and the color changes, I imagined he really thought through and thought how to, like, keep it interesting. Although it did start to kind of wear on me towards the end, just the red and blue palette. I was like, okay, I get it. It's stylish.
now that's done, from what I'm able to observe, that's done by the lights. The lights are that color. That's not done with color timing or anything.
That's
like
what
that.
I was wondering. You think so? It was all just done with,
I
like,
think it was
blue
done
and
with
red lights?
Yeah. I think
maybe
it was
they did a
done
little work in post.
I don't know. You see, color timing with film is tricky. It's not like digital where you just click and drag, like, you know, your color thing around there. You're changing the color. Color timing with film, I don't even really know how they do it. How they do color timing with film. Maybe they make a copy and they put filters in when they're making copies onto other pieces of film, but I imagine that would be really take a long time and be very tedious.
I mean, when it was originally chemical, yeah, that's what they would have to do. They'd have to they basically had like red, yellow, and blue, and they would set these different parameters of like, oh, let's try it like this. I think I want it to be like this, and they would have to print it and look at it, and then no, we got to adjust this, and this needs to be more yellow, this needs to be more blue. So I don't know. It was definitely shot on film though.
Definitely shot on film. You can see the grain. I'm guessing with the shadows shifting towards blue. Usually, I hear that means it's shot on reversal film.
It could be.
And so that's why it has that. And also, reversal film is a little more grainy looking. It's not 16 millimeter, is it?
I think it was 35.
35, but it's a grainy 35 millimeter.
Yeah, and it had that throwback look.
Yeah,
we were talking about. I mean, Drive didn't have that, but it has like kind of like House of the Devil or something.
Yeah, when I was watching it, I was wondering, would it suit the film more or less if it was shot with our new super sharp red cameras, where the color tones are so soft, but the edges are so sharp?
I think it would have been a lot like more dull to watch.
Perhaps.
I think because of this, they were able to get away with a lot more too, because they had some like cheap effects and like that flashback scene where everything was white.
Well, and I think the color is supposed to be jarring for the viewer. I don't know.
Oh yeah, it's otherworldly.
The red cameras
especially when we enter the real world. It's even more jarring when we're in that waiting room, that little waiting room where the Mexican radio is playing, and there's a sofa and a microwave and a little TV. It's really just, now you feel like you've entered the alien world when you're entering a world that's familiar to us in the real world.
That's why I think part of the pacing, the reason is behind that pacing is to get you so familiar. It's like, okay, this is old hat. It's seeing the same special effects over and over again. So then when you see something that's normal, quote unquote, it's like, oh, wow, it really stands out to you.
Yeah. Well, let's start at the beginning. Starts, like we said, with that cool intro, the 1983 red letters or red numbers on black background. And then we get watch that video, right? It's like this original, some sort of like recruitment video.
Yeah, it's kind
of like it was kind of Dharma initiative-ish.
Yeah, kind of like almost like an infomercial type of video.
Mm-hmm.
And it's advertising this retreat, basically.
I guess that's what it was, or like a program.
Biodome retreat.
And like one of the terms I liked was energy sculpting. Like they have all these new age terms, and they said they have herbalists.
Juxtaposition terms. Dreams become reality and stuff like that.
It's kind of corporate art slogans, that type of stuff.
Yeah, it was born. I wrote that down actually. Born of a dream to create a reality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's like, what does that mean exactly?
And it was done in like a full frame, a little square in the middle of the screen, which I think is a nice little touch. But yeah, and then there's those credits with the pupil closing.
Yeah, really good credit sequence actually. It kind of like sets the mood for the rest of the movie, right? Like you could imagine if it was just red titles over.
Yeah, that would be effective to see in a theater.
Yeah,
to see a giant eye dilating in front of you.
That kind of sets the tone for the rest of the movie, I think.
Yeah, because then we just jump into, I think it just goes to the girl in the cell, sort of, and there's a lot of like still shots of just stuff around the environment. It kind of reminded me of like David Lynch, his sort of like in Eraserhead, just his attention to like little piles of dirt or little doodads over here. And it did the same sort of like ambient sound effect when it would change shots as if like the image was somehow affecting the sound.
And actually I think the first thing after the credit sequence that we see is one of the things that I couldn't wait to talk about with you guys, because I don't know if it's an artifact or if it's technology or what it is. I think the first thing you see is that pyramid thing. Mm-hmm. That is cut back to frequently in the movie.
Oh, the glowing pyramid.
Yeah, whatever that is.
It's the brain buster. It's the neural inhibitor.
Well, I got another thing it reminded me of was Akira.
Yeah.
I thought the pyramid was what kept the girl subdued, kept her god powers or whatever it is subdued, so she can't make people's faces melt and stuff like that.
Yeah, because when he turns it off, she kills that.
That
nurse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a specific scene later where he's like obviously controlling the light from the pyramid, but even though we're jumping ahead, we have no more knowledge of like what the pyramid is at that point.
Well, okay, so I mean, that's just one of those visual cues that makes Rob Ager go, the pyramid is the all-seeing pyramid eye that oppresses mankind underneath. You get rid of the pyramid and your minds are free and you can escape the prism of this society or something like that.
Okay.
That's what I got, because those, again, that's one of those visual cues things that I think a filmmaker is knowledgeable about. A filmmaker knows what he's doing when he's putting a pyramid somewhere, because that the pyramid represents many things. You know, it represents
Freemasons.
Yeah, it represents some sort of control or power, going all the way back to Egypt. The pyramid just represents some kind of structure, and of course, a pyramid signifies centralized power because the smallest point is where the most power is, and that's what decides what happens going down the pyramid. But then maybe they just wanted to use a pyramid because it looked cool or something.
Yeah, I think it was a little bit of both. I mean, and there's a number of other like obvious pyramids in the movie.
It definitely fit the aesthetic as well of that type of dystopian movie from the late 70s and early 80s. It would be something that's really kind of low tech but looks futuristic, and it's supposed to be mysterious. That's where the kind of European art film comes into.
Right.
There isn't a scientist that's like, well, we developed this for 20 years, and how it works is on your frontal lobe. And, there's no explanation.
Yeah, you don't need to hear a scientist say that. You can pretty much get it just by looking at it.
So, yeah, we see her, and there's that scene where she leans her head against the wall, and we hear
let's
breathing.
first say that. Did we mention that the movie tells you this is 1983?
Yeah,
that was the beginning.
But we didn't mention that in this podcast.
I think that it's 19. Yeah, you did. But I think it's 1983, and then it like jumps ahead in time.
No, it jumps backward. Right?
No, it doesn't. I don't think. Like I remember.
It goes back 1983.
That's what I was thinking too. I thought maybe just the intro was 1983, like that little video or something.
Right.
But I think that's all 1983 because later it does jump back to the 60s. So I think we're supposed to assume that we were in 83 the whole time because it has that aesthetic too.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I think.
Yeah. So then where we were was basically after the introduction of the pyramid, there's that interrogation sequence that pretty much sets up the two main characters, really only a handful of characters in the movie, and it kind of sets up those two characters.
Mm-hmm. And I wrote this note down. That's when I was wondering about the time period because he says the world is in chaos.
Right.
And I was like, is this some dystopian future? Or?
I immediately got the sense that that's just what he was telling her.
And
maybe
also,
to keep her from wanting to escape or something.
It fits with that, and also to kind of harp on the same idea is that it is also part of those dystopian movies like Logan's Run or THX 1138.
Yeah, right.
A lot of these dystopian movies came out of
you don't want to see what's over the wall, right?
Yeah, but I
mean,
when she escapes, she like walks into a suburb, and it's all nice.
And there's nothing going on.
There was nothing to worry about at all.
Yeah, but it feeds into that same theme of those movies that were made at that time that reflects just the general feeling. It seems like that society was collapsing, basically. And then there was these. I mean, it's actually in that way it's kind of really good because it's made from the perspective of like things that are new agey and hippie or to not be trusted. I think
right.
I think that is kind of a common theme in those movies too, where it's like just take your pills and you'll be fine, that type of thing.
He takes a lot of pills.
He takes a lot of pills. Yeah.
There's that awesome scene where he takes the pill and the walls start to melt behind him.
Oh, yeah, that's like one of the music video scenes, though, right?
Yeah.
A lot of this movie feels like a music video.
I think in a good way, though.
Yeah.
Well, I think those are the coolest scenes, and the stuff in between them are sort of not as as captivating. If only because whoever with the director just uses the same sort of color palette and to I don't know. I felt like the color as well as the ambient sound and everything was just to make the viewer uncomfortable. And I thought that the yellow or the sort of red, orange, and blue, I don't know, just gets old.
I think you feel that way because ultimately there isn't a strong story. It's really maybe 25 minutes of story.
Yeah, you could edit this thing down to 30 minutes and still have the same basic movie, but you wouldn't feel the amount of time of being imprisoned in there for so long.
It really is one of it has all the hallmarks of a midnight movie. Like this is meant to be seen on a big screen, not at home type of thing.
Right.
Ideally projected, that type of thing. That's another one of those check boxes on a film snob checklist, I would think.
Yeah. What were the televisions supposed to be? We're still in the beginning, pretty much.
Yeah.
The televisions which are showing her violence or something like that, or
I think that scene was supposed to, because she had her hand against the screen. I think that was kind of an Akira moment where it's supposed to hint at the idea of telekinesis, because I think she's
changing the channels with
her mind. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We're not supposed to necessarily understand that. We're supposed to be kind of confused, which we were.
Yeah, I mean, for most of the beginning of the movie, you're pretty confused, and it's just with her, and then it's that interrogation scene.
Yeah, I thought they may have been showing her those images as part of some test or something like that.
Yeah. and you don't really know who that guy is. But then one of the scenes after is you see that nurse again, and she goes and presses that button and opens the little hatch with the book inside. Like, I don't know where that was.
It's like his secret file.
Yeah, it's like
on
his
her.
secret, and it was about her.
Yeah, it was about the girl.
I thought it was about the girl.
About Elena.
You know what's
Yes.
interesting, though? That scene where she was looking with the book, that set me up for a more disturbing ending than the movie actually paid off.
And
I was ready for him to become some sort of super Hellraiser rapist monster
I think
at the end with like this big Robocock coming up, and it's like, let me into your womb, mankind must evolve. You know?
that
What has science done? You know?
we will totally talk about that ending. Yeah, I think once we get to it, because there's a lot of things wrong there.
Yeah. But so we have the part where she like looks at the little book, and that's where the movie kind of gets a little more interesting. She's like, "What the hell's going on here?"
Well, that's kind of the hook. That's like the
Yeah.
first time in the movie where you're kind of like, there's a little bit an element of a mystery where you're like, well, what is this really about? And seeing how she responds kind of gives you the idea that this is wrong. Like if she looked at all of these weird drawings and was like, oh yeah, this is exactly what we're supposed to do, then that would kind of clue you in into.
Plus, at this point, the antagonist is. I mean, I don't know what more you could think of him as than like a new age psychiatrist. You know, you don't know that he's gonna pull that hair off and have crazy eyes.
At this point, you don't really know who's the protagonist and the antagonist.
No, and I like the way the movie slowly kind of peels that stuff away. Like at first we're in this weird world, and then we see that little book, which kind of gives you a little more grounding into what's going on. And then we get him at home with that woman. I don't even know who is that woman he lives with.
I guess that's his wife.
His wife?
I think so.
I thought it was mom or something.
I thought it was his mom.
Could be.
I don't know, but that also, and then she's like watching Ronald Reagan on TV, and that grounded it way more in like our reality.
That there is a real world out there somewhere.
Yeah, that didn't just exist in this red and blue world. And a little scene I liked, it was very like Brazil-esque or something, where he wipes up the ashes with the tissue, and then he like puts in that little vacuum in the wall.
Well, that was like out of 1984. Like they talk about in 1984, those little holes that were in desks and stuff like that. Then instead of trash cans, you just threw it away, and then it went immediately to the incinerator, like that type of thing. I thought you were going to mention the phone call around that time.
I want to mention that too. Yeah, when he gets that phone call, and it's like that weird radio voice, and you're like, "What's going on?"
That was where it felt like David Lynch was paying us a visit.
But he starts responding to it, like he understands what they're saying, and you're like, "Oh no, this doesn't make sense."
And then he says afterwards, "Why didn't you answer the fucking phone? Like, were you expecting her to answer that phone and hear that on the other end?" So.
But then there's that great reveal where, like, you know, he's kind of confused. He hangs up the phone and he looks under the table, and it's that close up of the plug outside of the side.
It wasn't.
It wasn't plugged in.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, all right. Yeah, that was, I think, the most Lynchy moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, this movie had a lot of kind of Eraserhead, Lost Highway vibe.
Definitely. But the thing that stood out the most... So basically that phone scene that we were talking about kind of hints at the idea that this guy's unstable. We see him taking lots of medication. He has the veneer of being normal, but like there's something
and he's
weird.
not just taking the medication, he's relishing in it and almost seems aroused by the act of shoving the pills into his mouth.
Yeah, he's getting some kind of like sexual pleasure out of it or something.
Well, he also has like a weird attachment to the girl, which we don't really know where that fits in either. We don't really know.
It's so weird because she refers to him as father.
Well, that is...
Her telekinesis is starting to speak to him or something like that.
No, she says, "I want to see my father."
Oh,
okay. Yeah, we find out later her father is the old guy from the video.
Is what's his name? Arboria, the Arboria guy.
Yeah.
After that phone call, briefly after that is you know, because he spends all this time. He spends a lot of time in the movie just watching this girl. But yeah, that's what you were mentioning, David, is taking the pill and then the walls slowly start to melt. That's another kind of clue. Is like things are really kind of amping up, and you're still trying to sift out who is the protagonist and who's the antagonist. But I really liked that flashback. That was, I think, really kind of the standout, and like the opportunity to have like the most interpretation.
That was a.
Well,
I couldn't tell. Like, was that like a? Were we supposed to take what we were looking at face value, or was that a dream or something? one of the nurse ladies who walks up to him, something's wrong with her eyes. Like she's got like a screen over her face with eyes painted on. Like those aren't her eyes. It does something to your brain that makes you go. I don't. Some kind of uncanny valley effect happens because her eyes are too far forward, as if she's wearing sunglasses or glasses with little eyes painted on them or something. And he's lowering into the goo. He's got this third eye on his forehead, and it's I guess it's part flashback, part dream sequence. Very weird.
Well, I thought it was very sexual. So he lowers in and then pulls out and pukes the liquid everywhere.
Yeah.
Like,
But once he immerses himself in there, there's all that stuff that you could either interpret as like he was transformed, or it is what the experience of this transformation feels like. Because he's obviously given something with that drop. Or
That's the only part where it turns to color, too.
Yeah. I thought that stuff was very effective, like the melting face and
that part looked good.
but that's
Great.
that's one of the music video parts. Though, I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
that
was a
whole
weird
sequence.
little trip.
Yeah, it needs like Trent Reznor playing in the background or something like that.
I thought it was very effective.
Yeah, and the kind of smoke effects reminded me of like 2001. That who is that guy who also did Tree of Life? That he likes to drop watercolors into into
slow
thing
motion
and
or
this-
high speed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so it had that same sort of feel to it. And
But that was one of those standout scenes to me.
And that was representing some sort of change in that guy when he went in the goo, I guess, which is, he said, it's like the new dawn of man or something.
yeah, I got the sense that these scientists are trying to kickstart mankind's evolution and move us forward a bit.
I thought that was the conception of the girl.
It is also because
Yeah.
wasn't she the baby? They dipped this baby into the same goo that transforms our psychiatrist guy.
Is this a Prometheus goo?
It might be.
Yeah, Prometheus goo. It's some sort of Akira experimentation going on.
Some mind powers.
We forgot to mention before the flashback the part with the Sentionaut or whatever, that Daft Punk robot.
Yeah.
What was it called on the computer?
Sentient bot.
Not.
Sentient not.
Yeah.
Sentient not.
N-A-U-T.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he lets her out of the room, but then he sends the robot
thing
after
to go
her
retrieve
get
her. Yeah.
And that's okay. So, in a nutshell, basically, he lets her out. He sends these basically cop robots, which are kind of like out of THX 1138. There's these cop robots. Sends it after her, which is also kind of confusing because he wants to obtain this girl for some reason.
But he likes to let her go and then give her hope and then turn the pyramid back on.
It's kind of the idea of the chase and everything.
Yeah, he's obviously doing something sadistic.
But this time he's lost it, and
I don't think there's any more.
he doesn't turn the pyramid on. I guess.
Right.
Is that
Right.
because he is just crazy? He doesn't turn the pyramid back on.
Well, that's the thing too. Is like I feel like it's not necessarily that he's crazy. It's that he's literally been transformed, and wearing the wig and the pills and everything like that is this way of him appearing normal to everybody else. Right. And how he really is the guy in the leather suit. That's really his. Not necessarily his final transformation, but kind of like how he is naturally, and it's like he's kind of relieved to finally be this way. But so in any case, they send these police robots after him, and that was the thing that was another, like, I guess it was just a shot or a small sequence that really stood out to me too. Is inexplicably one of these cop robots run across the girl, the protagonist, and then takes its mask off.
Oh, that was later, but
It's got a little baby face with penguin hands.
Yeah, that was really weird. And I felt like that was weird, but it was just there to be weird. Like I didn't really get anything out of it.
Well, when you get that glimpse of his notebook, it has like one big figure with like mind arrows going out into all these like soldiers. So it seemed like he was trying to do some sort of telepathic soldier program.
Yeah.
Las Plagas.
All of fear.
Yeah.
So I mean, maybe her super psychicness took control of the baby.
Yeah, no, I got the sense
bot.
that she used her power on it to make it take off the mask and hold still.
Really?
And she got scared and then circumvented him.
Really? So she used psychic powers to be like, I'm not here, and then just like walked away?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, I think that's what happened. Because she was obviously cornered in the elevator. And I thought she did something to it to make it go...
Because they're just drones. They seem like they're just some sort of like drones of some kind.
Man, interesting. Okay, yeah. Well, you filled in the blanks on that. I think that's kind of interesting.
Is there anything else you guys want to say about the dream sequence?
It was disturbing.
I'm sorry.
It's
not the
a
dream
flashback.
sequence, flashback. Is there anything else you guys want to say?
It was disturbing. I mean, wasn't that the first instance of that kind of Japanese style spraying blood? You know, where a human being has like blood pressure of some kind of fire hydrant. You know,
yeah.
I mean, it's really just jarring and disturbing. And it's black. You don't even know really what color is supposed to be what. You know,
He goes in that goo and then he bites that girl in the neck like a vampire.
Because he was transformed.
I almost thought that's what the movie was going to turn into, or something like, we're making vampires. And I was oh god.
There is that element of it where it's like it kind of flirts with that, and then it totally doesn't do anything with it, right? Like it's not really a chase movie either. Like you kind of get the impression, reading the synopsis, that like, after the first act, this guy's going to go crazy and just be chasing her through this compound until the end,
which
right?
is actually just the last 15 minutes of the movie. Maybe 15. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah,
it's like it's not really what the movie is. I thought the flashback sequence is pretty much the centerpiece of the movie.
And it doesn't really have a set piece. Really, it's just white and little bits of shadow, and that's it.
You kind of get impressions of.
You get impressions of maybe there's space and distance of but it's very limited.
Yeah.
And what about that part where he says, "Come back with the motherload," and it's all "Come back with the motherload." That stuck with me for a while because that's weird.
It is.
It's effective though, and it stays with you too.
It does. Yeah, it does. I know it's one of these things where it's weird for weird's sake. I think there's a lot of that.
There is weird for weird's sake, but I think there is some weird that had some thought involved.
No, it's not slapdash.
This is gonna stay in the audience's mind. We're in the next 15 minutes, and it'll have an effect on the next sequence of events that happen afterwards. We have a mixture of like really effective filmmaking, which is like the definition of filmmaking, which is telling stories through a sequence of images, and there is some weird stuff that there isn't much explaining behind, but it gets away with it.
Gets away with it because it's an experience, right?
Yeah, it's ultimately a weird journey you're going on.
Yeah, and I think ultimately in that way it's kind of rewarding. You're kind of like, you liked that you kind of went on it, I think, even though there's not that much.
I think it could have been 20 minutes shorter.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
An hour 50 is pretty long.
It could
for this sort of.
It was an hour and 50 minutes.
Movie.
That's how long it was.
Like hour and a half would have been fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They could have cut out some of like just that walking at the end.
Oh, I mean, where she's in double vision and she's wandering out. That took a really long time. At the same time, when you do stuff like that, you run the risk of making your film kind of tedious. But at the same time, those are the same ingredients that give your film character too, and give it ground itself in something that is totally its own. And I'm thinking back to 2001.
Yeah.
That's what gave the movie character with those long shots.
I think with the difference between that and 2001, especially if you've seen it a couple times, you kind of understand the concept behind why things are paced the way that they are in that movie. There is actually a pretty strong story and script in 2001. It's just the way that it's told. But in this case, you can't really defend it. It's really supposed to be just an experience. It doesn't have.
Yeah, it is ultimately an experience. You know. You don't want to sit there and explain to somebody, this is the part where the girl is, going through a trip or something,
Right. But I am of the mind, too, where I think it's totally fine to bore the audience if you have a point. Yeah. If you get, by boring the audience for any amount of time, if there is a payoff to being bored, then I think you've justified it. I don't know necessarily if it works in this case.
I don't think it did. I mean, that's what I was thinking, like when it got to the part where he started like ripping off, when he took off his wig and like got all weird, I was like, it's really going to depend on the end of this movie, like how much I like this and how interesting it is. And I don't think the ending paid off.
Okay, well let's work our way to the ending.
I think actually one of my favorite shots in the movie is when, do we know the doctor's name?
Dr. Niles.
Oh, when D. Nile was driving in the truck, and I don't know, they changed the lighting to sort of green.
Oh man, with his
face,
eyes.
like,
with
his
green
eyes are like glowing. It's pretty cool.
That's nuts. Yeah.
Are we talking about the same driving sequence where he looks over and acknowledges himself in the passenger seat at a different time, like saying "good job" or something?
He says, "You're doing a great job" or something. Yeah, that was weird.
Weird.
Yeah, that's about where we are in the story. Is when he
really weird guys.
Oh, hey, did you guys know this movie's weird?
Things are getting kind of weird over here.
Yeah, that's about where we, because that's in the very last 15 minutes.
It's about where we are. Yeah, where he
Yeah.
pulls his hair off and he takes out his eyeballs.
Right. Kind of like large contact lenses.
Yeah. Well, let's jump into the last part of the movie where it really becomes more about Dr. Niles, Dr. Barry Niles.
How'd they come up with that name?
But when he takes off his hair and he kills that woman,
Whoever it is.
yeah, gives her the old eye squish.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't given us enough evidence to understand whether that's a wife or a mom or a sister.
But it's somebody that he
Their
cohabitates
conversation
with.
is, yeah.
You know, that's
yeah,
it.
Yeah.
That's it. And then you kind of get an impression by the conversations, like, oh, you took your appliances out, the things that made him look more human.
Mm-hmm.
It's somebody that may even be there just to look after him, because he is obviously a crazy person.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever experiences he had, whether that was acid or whatever it was.
We skipped past the old man in the
Oh,
green room,
that's
though.
right.
We gotta
Let's go
talk
back
about
to that.
that.
Yeah, when he goes to visit the old guy.
Is that guy supposed to be like God or something?
No, that was the
guy at the.
I mean, I know. I'm just saying symbolically for the movie. I mean, this is the guy that kept that other scientist in check, and then after he died, then he could take off his wig and take off his eyes, and then start going after the girl. It felt like that.
Father.
Yeah, it felt like the father had a connection to the girl because when he injected between his toes, then the girl had a reaction, and
Right.
then when he's watching the video, the vacation video, they're both experiencing the same thing.
Right.
So they obviously both have a connection there.
I thought that it was also serving the purpose of showing, like, hey, this whole, underground society thing is nonsense because this is the leader. He's like this morphine
That's what it all
addict.
comes down to. They,
Yeah.
we basically met the architect and we're disappointed.
Right. Exactly.
Was there a society? Like, was there other people down there?
Well, I think the
It's
reason that I say that is because I'm using the reference being the that info video that we get in the beginning, is you kind of get this impression like, oh, other people have joined them. I mean, based
But
on
it's
what
more
you
like an asylum, though.
Yeah, what you see.
Or they're just experimenting on people.
yeah, what you see for the rest of the movie is the idea of that there's only like 4 or 5 people that are living in this whatever it is. It's like a greenhouse basically, underground. But I think that's what kind of clues you. That scene is there to kind of give you bearings in terms of what's actually going on. I think that it is just that limited.
So we're at the part now where the girl escapes, Elena, where she escapes because he's not there anymore, and that's when she sees the Daft Punk robot without the mask.
Right.
And she crawls around and goes into all these different rooms. She runs into like a zombie in a straitjacket.
Right.
Was that like another
That was another experiment.
Yeah, like her.
That's the impression I got. Yeah.
That was pretty wild. She goes in an elevator. She goes all over the place.
And it's interesting when she crosses between sort of controlled areas and maintenance like hallways and stuff, that the lighting goes from asylum world to real world and back.
It feels more like natural lighting is happening.
Yeah, like you said earlier, when this is the part where she walks into like that break room, that waiting room, whatever it was. And yeah, it's just normal like fluorescent
And it feels
lights.
weird to see her in it too. It's like she's entered some alien world.
Yeah.
Because we've gotten so used to that red blue lighting world. That's just so weird.
And then she gets out, which I wasn't, she goes out into a pretty normal world. But before we get to that ending, we have to talk about that part with those campers.
Yeah, they're credited as the Heschers, basically the metal kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was really weird.
And that's really jarring too, is where it's like, oh yeah, we are in 1983, and there's these 2 metal kids out in the forest. Just
Drinking
like,
beer and talking about girls they want to get laid with.
That's it, yeah.
And that's
it.
nothing else to take from it, really.
Mm-hmm.
And then he kills them.
I didn't like that part because I guess for a while, like at the beginning of this movie, I was comparing it a lot to like Eraserhead, and it was like this weird, crazy reality that it existed in. And then once it gets to that part, you realize it's grounded in our reality. That didn't make it scarier for me. That took me out of it. I was like, well,
this that bad though.
But it just because it didn't make sense. It didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, that's what makes it scary. I actually disagree. I think it is. I think it is scary to know that there's this alternate reality, just right underground somewhere.
I
Where
guess
there's
I didn't
different
have the
rules
same
and
effect.
different mannerisms and different ways of acting.
What do you think?
I gotta side with Jeff on this one. Just.
Well, you got your divisive fight, Joseph. Congratulations. Because I actually
it's just like why did he have to be like, I'm a crazy guy with a knife now and I'm gonna kill these kids?
Yeah, no,
right,
you know
for
what?
Drinking beer.
Here, I'll use an example for you. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We go into this world of murder and grandpa and all that weird shit, and all of a sudden, at the very end of the movie, we converge with like real people just driving their fucking car down the highway.
Right.
And that is effective.
Mm-hmm.
But that
was
wasn't
the best part of the movie.
Yeah,
when
but
these regular people and the truck driver run into this mad world that kind of spilled onto the highway in front of them.
Mm-hmm. But that wasn't the same kind of like like this felt like an alternate reality, especially with the crazy guy and like the woman he lives with and the old man down there. It was like it felt like they were all acting in a different reality, like they weren't human beings. And I was getting into that, like they remind me again of Eraserhead.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But then when it
doesn't have to be like Eraserhead.
No, I know it doesn't have to be like Eraserhead. I'm not like trying to compare it to that from beginning to end. But like when it hit reality, I was like, oh, I started thinking about it more, and it like made less sense to me, like how it happened.
I have a theory.
Yeah, but again, everything is so deliberate in this movie too. That's a deliberate choice on the part of the director's part to throw you into actual reality 1983 all of a sudden. Like,
because
this is happening amidst 1983 reality with Reagan and shit.
If he wanted to hold your hand, he wouldn't cut directly to a scene with two metalheads just listening to heavy metal, drinking beer. I mean, there would be a way to kind of transition that better. It's just such a harsh... cut, basically. It's just such a harsh jump in tone.
And again, when the guy walks around the corner, when the guy's peeing, again, it's like Leatherface just sort of walked in, and it's like you've got two alternate universes converging here. Like, and usually films don't like to do that. They like to keep the same consistent tone. Mm-hmm. Like you wouldn't picture like The Matrix all of a sudden turning into like Kindergarten Cop or shit like that. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, it's pretty.
I guess what I'm saying is, I mean, I can respect that, but I guess I liked the weird alternate reality more, and I just wanted to know that like that was like what this movie existed in, like when people talk like that and like have
staying in that alternate reality too long makes you too comfortable though. You become adjusted. I think you would become adjusted comfortable with it, and when you enter the real world, that's when you become uncomfortable because now it feels like it's entering your universe.
But I wasn't made uncomfortable by that. I just thought it didn't take me out of the feeling. It took me out of the movie entirely because all of a sudden he's jamming a knife through the guy's bottom palate, and it looks like shit when everything else in the movie has, either looked really good or they've used effects to sort of cover up the shitty gore.
That shift, I understand that. That shift from some sort of Japanese horror movie that you find on Netflix anywhere, with that other really kind of very strange surrealist universe. That is the jarring part for me. Not the fact that we're going from an alternate universe from Eraserhead into the year 1983 somewhere in America, but that tone, the change in tone from knife in the lower palate, and blood squirting too. Yeah.
And like I would have found it more interesting if maybe she came upon these metal people because
you know what, you're right.
Dr. Nile has been interacting with the real world this whole time.
That is a missed opportunity right there.
And so when Sage comes out, he's like, I'm crazy. And, and then when, he meets up with her and she just kills him, like nothing.
Yeah.
And she sees houses. She doesn't interact with any people. She doesn't really, we don't see her exposed to the other world.
And here's the part where we're coming to, which in my opinion is the biggest problem in the movie, which we all may have agreement on.
That was what I was going to say. I have a theory that I think the bad taste in everybody's mouth is slipping on a rock.
Yeah. That was pretty lame. Like, he didn't even slip. He didn't slip on a rock. His like feet were caught.
Yeah, no, she killed him. She just.
How did you get that impression?
Because he started trying to walk and he couldn't move, and she was like, scowling at him. And I felt like we've been led to believe that she has some sort of powers.
Well, definitely, yeah.
So she used her powers.
And then all of a sudden he just.
Yeah, she used something to keep his feet grounded, and so he falls and breaks his neck, a la $1 Million Baby.
Right, right. I just felt like it was too easy, even if it was her using her psycho powers.
Yeah, there's two major problems with that ending versus everything we saw before. One, the glimpses we got in that book, I was prepared for something really, really crazy. There was a fucking strap-on cock in the images I saw. There was a fucking strap-on cock. Like,
there's the stinger. That's the stinger in this episode.
I was ready for the thesis of this movie to be science gone awry. This is what happens when you give people too much power and
over the mind.
They conceive these plans of rape and conquer and planting your seed and the animalistic urge to procreate with the human race versus this technology that we have, these godlike powers, and now we can just do these really horrible, raunchy, evil things to each other, and then slip on a rock and break your neck. Yeah. And also, there's the part before the guy does the Blade Runner killing, the whoever it is that he cohabitates with.
Right.
He whispers about, like, they did things to me, and I saw the eye of God, and
he
chose me, which I was thinking, like, okay, what this movie is basically saying is, if you allow a human mind to know this vast, unknowable truth about reality and the way the universe works, you'd go insane. And you'd become a monster, because the universe actually, according to the thesis of the movie, which I suspected, the universe works on chaos and murder and rape, and that's how you procreate and move a species forward, is through vile, horrible things where you see like ants crawling on a dead mouse and like lions eating zebras and disease. Like there's a horrible there's a disturbing truth at the heart of what keeps the universe working, which we don't want to acknowledge, and we want to think there's some greater purpose to it all, but there isn't.
So it's a Nine Inch Nails video in there somewhere?
And so he understands the ultimate sad truth of this universe, and that's what makes him what he is. And the movie didn't reinforce that.
No, not at all. I mean, that's why the ending is kind of a lost opportunity.
Yeah.
I don't think that necessarily doesn't ruin it for me. I mean, that's also why I kind of recommended it. I thought like the trip itself was pretty good.
Yeah.
3/4 of it.
Like Steve was saying, I was waiting for more of like a big ending, like something really wild. Because the movie had a lot of surprises.
Yeah, just something weird, I was really expecting another music video sequence.
Something kind of subjective and...
Yeah.
One of the things that we didn't really mention is the ceremony knife.
That was odd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He had it in a little suitcase in his bedroom.
Yeah.
Why, though? You see, that was one of the things... I was expecting something better than just a knife for him to cut her with. I was expecting some kind of super cock. Some kind of super dildo.
I think...
Some kind of... You see, again, I get Videodrome. Videodrome kind of revisited my subconscious while I was watching this movie.
Definitely.
So I'm looking for some kind of bio-horror sexual theme to be going on
Definitely,
here.
Yeah. Well, that's the reason you think that is because it is set up with that book and everything like that. It's not because you are a deviant. It is also that, but it is set up with the book as well. I mean, here's the thing: if you set up the ceremony knife, and then the second half of the movie became like a John Carpenter chase movie, that would work. If it was all of a sudden that synth, and like this, very simple synth music, and she's just running through these hallways, and it's like, he's unstoppable, and he's got a ceremony knife or whatever. Well, then that would be a different movie. But it's like, I don't really understand, other than having a big shiny knife in there that looks futuristic, why do we have a ceremony?
Well, that made me think of something else, like, for this being such a weird movie, but then kind of boiling down to this like basic, good girl, bad guy setting where he dies, like you kill the bad guy. Like, I guess I wasn't expecting this movie to have any sort of like rational ending like that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it was that was jarring too. Like, oh, he just kind of dies.
It's like a slasher ending to
he doesn't die
totally
and like
irrational movie.
Completely, yeah. And then, I mean, what is that final shot really? What are we supposed to feel with that final shot? The suburbs from E.T., basically. What are we supposed to
well, you
feel?
expect him to die and like his head crack open and like red ooze comes out and like starts glowing and then
Sure.
she blows up. You know, something
Yeah,
really.
but as it is, hold on. As it is in the movie, what are you supposed to feel with that final shot? What are we supposed to get from that?
Was
he
it
gonna
supposed
be
to be like a what was
taken
that
in
M
by
Night
a-
Shyamalan movie, The Village?
Is it supposed to
Was
be
it
like
supposed to be like that? Like I don't believe it. Like
impossible?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. See, that's the other thing too. Like where it's just like it kind of ends. It just is kind of like, and it was all a dream. It's almost to that effect.
Yeah. It's almost like it could have used like a cop car pulling up and these cops come out with their flashlights. Hey, who are you? And then she just like... And then that's the end of it. And then you can guess they find her, they question her, they find the lab, and they uncover the unravel.
Then it could be a found footage sequel.
or like he would have. What if he didn't die and he like got her back or something? And it was like a really like tragic ending or something. You know.
It's just that the build. I think the other reason why we're feeling this way is that the build up is so good. We were kind of ready to go anywhere this movie wanted to go.
Mm-hmm.
If this, if Werner Herzog showed up and said this man is obsessed with finding the women,
But
we'd be like, yeah, sure, why not?
Are the suburbs supposed to be like another artificial, medicated, crazy house?
That's my question. Yeah, is there
Yeah.
supposed to be that subtext? Like
Into the fire.
yeah, exactly. Like I don't know. I don't know if that stuff is there or if we're just reading into it. That was my question.
It's like, is she moving from one prism into another prison?
Correct. Because like you do kind of have this idea of like there's this semblance of grandfather, father, and mother,
Mm-hmm.
and then she's the one that's locked away in her room, that type of thing. But I don't know if that's just total accidental. It could be.
Another weird part is when the bad guy, Dr. Was it
Dr.
Niles.
Dr. Niles, he has Jack Black, in the headlock, and he's got the he's like, you fucked her. Like,
Yeah.
I thought
Oh,
Philip
he
Seymour
licks her and
Hoffman when
stuff.
I saw him.
Not Jack Black.
Philip Seymour Hoffman? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he had kind of
From
a
from Boogie Nights.
PSH
Yeah.
face. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that he like licks his face and that
It's like, you
was
fucked
just
her.
that was like trying to be weird. you know?
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay.
But it still could have worked if there was a satisfying finale. It still could have been a good setup. I didn't feel like, oh, this is totally out of place in the rest of this movie. It just, I think that retrospectively you feel like all this stuff didn't really lead to anywhere when you slip and fall on a rock.
Yeah.
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 And then she like sheds tears of joy.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's dead finally, and then she wanders up to a neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And you're supposed to have that. Is it supposed to be like one of those cliffhanger endings where it's up to the audience to decide?
Question mark. The end.
The end.
No, to wrap it up, I would basically say that it's an experience. It kind of harkens back to the idea of making a movie that doesn't have to be necessarily plot driven, but is kind of more of an experience.
Yeah, it's an experience. I wish I would have saw it in the theater.
Yeah.
It was definitely worth watching. It just didn't have.
Very satisfying visually.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It just didn't have the ending I wanted.
You had the name of the director memorized, right? What is it?
Panos Cosmatos. He's the son, I believe, of the director of Tombstone, and I think he did Rambo: First Blood Part 2. I think.
Okay.
Did a lot of those action. Cosmatos also did Cobra, if I'm thinking right.
Okay.
So
well,
those action movies of the 80s.
I eagerly wait to see what else this director can come up with and show us.
I would-
He's
Definitely,
officially
yeah.
on my radar now.
I would be just as satisfied if this was his only movie. I'd be like, hey,
Good for you.
Well done.
Yeah.
It's like you could be proud of this movie, I feel.
Mhm.
It's like if that's your one-off, then hey, well done. Well done.
Yeah.
Because you could tell that, again, that there was passion behind it. He wanted to make it.
He did what he
It
wanted
has
to do.
inspiration behind it from other things that we can recognize, but it's not necessarily totally derivative of something else. For us
Right.
to write it off and go, oh, this guy's just being
We
somebody
didn't even
else.
really talk about the weird cinematography, just like the way the shots are composed.
Oh, in terms of the rule of 1/3 and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, with people like kind of put off on the margins of the screen, like.
Well, see, that's interesting. Like, when I was watching this the first time, I didn't feel like I was being made to feel uneasy in a way that I was with something like Eraserhead. I know there was all the same kind of sound design things that run kind of through it like Eraserhead, but I felt like it was setting up an atmosphere, but I don't think I necessarily felt like I was supposed to feel like tense or nervous or uneasy. Did you guys feel that though?
I felt a little uneasy. I felt
I felt uneasy a lot.
Was that because of their acting
was,
or because of how it's composed?
I think it was the composure, how it was composed. Okay. There are a lot of super close-up, zoom-in, macro lens shots in that movie.
And there were a lot of shots that were out of focus.
A lot,
yeah. That makes you feel a little uneasy too. Because you're trying to look at it, and the movie won't let you.
Right.
Remember the phone call scene? The guy's half of his face is off the screen.
Yeah.
You know?
It's bizarre.
But it's effective. I mean,
if nothing else,
I'm pretty sure I felt the feelings that most of the director wanted to manipulate me into feeling.
To just feeling that something is off, if nothing else, right?
This is weird. This is different.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to write it off as just some schlock surrealism that any hack could do this. I mean, some thought went into it.
Yeah, I don't think
it's
it
effective.
was. Yeah.
I think it's like well-crafted, well-thought-out movie.
I thought a lot of the transitions worked really well. Like sometimes you're even thinking, like, well, how did they, did they plan that, or was it just a happy accident when they're cutting it together?
Yeah, when they transition something into that orange ceiling, the way the colors kind of come together. Yeah,
it was really nice.
Thanks for listening to the Snobcast. Please send feedback to the snobcastfeedback@gmail.com. Check out our Facebook, Tumblr, and YouTube accounts, username The Snobcast.
It's very, very good. This is always the highlight of my day.
Guessing with the shadows shifting towards blue, usually I hear that means it's shot on reversal film.
It could be.
And so that's why it has that. And also, reversal film is a little more grainy looking. It's not 16 millimeter, is it?
I think it was 35.
35, but it's a grainy 35 millimeter.
Yeah, and it had that throwback look.
Yeah,
we were talking about. I mean, Drive didn't have that, but it has kind of like House of the Devil or something.
Yeah, when I was watching it, I was wondering, would it suit the film more or less if it was shot with our new super sharp red cameras, where the color tones are so soft, but the edges are so sharp?
I think it would have been a lot more dull to watch.
Perhaps.
I think because of this, they were able to get away with a lot more too, because they had some cheap effects and that flashback scene where everything was white.
Well, I think the color is supposed to be jarring for the viewer. I don't know.
Oh yeah, it's otherworldly.
Red cameras
especially when we enter the real world, it's even more jarring when we're in that waiting room, that little waiting room where the Mexican radio is playing, and there's a sofa and a microwave and a little TV. It's really just, now you feel like you've entered the alien world when you're entering a world that's familiar to us in the real world.
That's why I think part of the pacing, the reason is behind that pacing is to get.
I mean, the opening just with the red titles was kind of like Blade Runner. I like that a lot with the 1983.
Yeah, I'm getting the same kind of feeling I got from Drive, which is this is kind of like a throwback to that 80s style kind of feel to it, but at the same time this is doing something a little new and different with something we're already familiar with.
Yeah, because it's a combination of kind of a bunch of different styles. Excuse me. Like, for example, I feel like it mixes a lot of European art film.
Yeah.
Too.
Was this made by Americans?
It's Canadians. It's Canadian.
It was a Canadian production, or was made by Canadians?
No, I think it's a Canadian production. I think the director, Panos Cosmatos, pretty sure he's American, I think.
Oh.
I mean, there's no reason why an American can't make a movie like this. You just see so few of them taking these kinds of risks, and this movie has such balls, to have the pacing so deliberately slow, the way it is. You have to be ready for that kind of movie. I mean, I liked it just as a film snob who likes taking these kind of different, these very just sort of this other realm of cinema, but at the same time, it's not going to be mass marketable. But
no, that's the thing. It's hard to say that it's personal, because it's not necessarily that there's any themes in there that you can kind of draw out that would make it personal. But it's personal in terms of this is somebody's vision. This is what this person likes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You definitely could vision this director really thinking about it and a lot of the visual cues and the color changes, I imagined he really thought through and thought how to like keep it interesting. Although it did start to kind of wear on me towards the end, just the red and blue palette. I was like, okay, I get it. It's stylish.
Now that's done, from what I'm able to observe, that's done by the lights. The lights are that color. That's not done with color timing or anything.
That's
like
what
that.
I was wondering. You think so? It was all just done with
I think it was
blue
done
and
with
red lights?
Yeah. I think
maybe
it was
they did a
done
little work in post.
I don't know. You see, color timing with film is tricky. It's not like digital where you just click and drag like, you know, your color thing around there. You're changing the color. Color timing with film, I don't even really know how they do it, how they do color timing with film. Maybe they make a copy and they put filters in when they're making copies onto other pieces of film, but I imagine that would be really take a long time and be very tedious.
I mean, when it was originally chemical, yeah, that's what they would have to do. They basically had like red, yellow, and blue, and they would set, you know, these different parameters of like, oh, let's try it like this. I think I want it to be like this. And they would have to print it and look at it, and then, oh, well, no, we got to adjust this, and, you know, this needs to be more yellow, this needs to be more blue. So, I don't know. It was definitely shot on film, though.
Definitely shot on film. You can see the grain.
It was interesting.
Well, you saw this movie, and your film snob light started going off. You started beep, 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 beep. This movie triggered obviously some sort of reaction from your mind that made you think, oh, you know, other film snobs want to watch this.
Yeah, there's basically a checklist that's on there.
Yeah, there is.
And which we can discuss right now, actually. What would be some of those?
Look, I got my impressions where I got Kubrick.
Okay.
Also a little bit of Eraserhead in there too. Mostly Kubrick though, with just those flat angle shots. Very very I guess what you call minimalist color tones going on. You know, so. That's what it felt like, and plus, like, you know, that kind of synthesizer music going on in the background, even though it's almost not even music. It's kind of like just, it's partly background music, or it's partly the ambience of the lab.
Yeah, I'm not really sure where the sound design ends and the music or score begins. You're not really sure what's ambient or what isn't.
Yeah.
Well, there's some pretty obvious score in this movie. There's a lot of that, like, what would you call that kind of music?
Well, I thought it was kind of Vangelis inspired. That's what kind of went off in my head, especially in terms of how it was edited and everything, was kind of Blade Runner-esque. It was very kind of dreamlike, and the scenes kind of bled into one another. And
yeah, I mean, there's even a kill scene that's right out of Blade Runner.
Yeah.
Welcome to episode 7 of the Snobcast. Today we are talking about Beyond the Black Rainbow. As always, this conversation will contain spoilers. We'll be talking about this movie from beginning to end.
Hello. My name is Dr. Mercurio Arboria, and I am the founder of the Arboria Institute. Through our unique blend of benign pharmacology, sensory therapy, and energy sculpting, we can guide you to a new, better, happier you.
All right, welcome. My name's Jeff Bateman. I'm here with my fellow snobs, David.
Hello.
Joseph.
hello.
And Steve.
Hello.
We're one trick pony here.
We're so indistinguishable from each other.
I think it's just one guy in a room.
All right, so we'll make it look like it's multiple guys, right?
So we watched Beyond the Black Rainbow, which is on Netflix, instant. Why do we watch this movie?
Yeah, why, Joseph?
Why do we watch it, Joseph?
Yeah, Joseph recommended it.
Something to do.
No, it was